I really appreciate you all coming today and learning a little more about what's going on with grants with us. Much of the information is the same as always, but there is some new stuff. And I know we've worked with a lot of new people this year, so it's great to be able to give you all the same information that some of our more veteran grant folks have. So first of all, there's me pre-COVID, really pre-COVID. That was a few years ago. But what I want to give you is my name is Susan Matheny, and I'm the program manager. And there's my email address. If you don't have it, feel free to jot it down. You can also find me on our website. It's pretty easy, but I just want to make sure you know that I welcome emails with questions and different things. So please don't be afraid to reach out if you're ever stuck. So the first thing I want to let you all know, I'm going to show this slide at the end as well, but we've created some resources for you on our website, and I want you to know where to find them. So for all the application info, look at berriencommunity.org/grants. You don't have to look at it right now. But if you want just a one-sheet grants at a glance, which is what this is that I'm kind of running my cursor over, we created that for you, which has all of our grant programs for the year and their deadlines and a little bit of more information. That's at berriencommunity.org/grantsinfo. That's also where you're going to find the video recording of this and some other documents that we're going to throw there that I just think might be helpful, like some grant writing tips. And there's also a form that says, here's some other grant programs I know about that we don't administer. And I make no guarantee of the links in all of those in that document. I mean, we updated it recently, but they come and go quickly. So I tell you to use that with caution, always do your own research and due diligence, but at least gives you a direction if you're looking for other grants besides ours. So before we start with the going through each individual grant, I want to talk a little bit about overall what Berrien Community Foundation does in the world of grant making. So Berrien Community Foundation's whole goal is to help resources meet needs. And we do it in everything we do, from scholarships for students to donor advised funds that help people make their own giving goals. And then we also have, of course, competitive grants, which are grants you apply for to win. And we do that with grants that I call kind of quote unquote own, that BCF owns, that means that they are funded by our own endowments. And then we also provide grant administrative services for other organizations that have a charitable goal. Philanthropic organizations could be family foundations, corporate foundations, you name it, there's lots of different ways, but we provide that fee or that service for them. We like to, we feel like maybe we're considered experts in the community, and that's why they come to us and trust us to help them with their process. So today we're going to talk about, in our grants, we have a combination of those things, and I just want you to know what I mean when I say an owned grant by BCF, or this is BCF owned versus not. And I'll always kind of tell you who does own it. And the big difference is they're all reliant upon rules and policies set forth by the BCF board and of course the government and the IRS, but they're also the ones that are not owned by BCF are also governed by the wishes of and the goals of the organization that is the owner of it. So they set criteria and different things as well. So that's, and oftentimes they also provide the committee that reviews them. So just keep that in mind as we go. That just gives you a little more about the nuts and bolts of how this works. Whew, any questions before I jump in? Anything, Lisa? All right. So then let's talk about what I like to think of as the crown jewel of Berrien Community Foundation's grants, the 4 Good grants. So some of you are familiar with it, some of you aren't. It is Berrien Community Foundation's premier competitive grant program, the 4 Good grants. They are project-based grants. 4 Good grants are in 2 sizes. So you can apply for a 4 Good minor, which is for up to $1,000, and a 4 Good major for up to $10,000, $1,001 to $10,000. And those grants are for projects or programs in Berrien County that serve Berrien County specifically. You can apply for one or the other. You have to choose, and you can win one of those each. Now, There's where it's going to get interesting this year. Because of COVID, which is a phrase I'm sure you've all heard a ton of times now recently, things got a little crazy for our nonprofits and our agencies serving the community. We know that in 2020 and in March and going forward from March, there was a point where many organizations were just struggling to keep their doors open because all the funding streams dried up, and we really were just trying to continue, not just, some of them weren't even able to continue service. They were just trying to not close their doors forever. So the Berrien Community Foundation found it prudent to provide what we called the Forever Grant. So that was different from the For Good grant in that it wasn't a project-based grant. It was more about an operational sustainability grant. So that meant it could be used for general operating purposes. So if I don't know if somebody has themselves off mute, if you could turn yourself on mute, that would be great. So the Forever Grant was intended to help our organizations stay, afloat and continue doing the work they could do as best they could throughout COVID. We thought, in hindsight, we thought rather optimistically that by the time we got to this point, we would not need a forever option. But we feel that it is still important for people to have a Forever Grant that's operational sustainability grant option. So what we're doing this time is we are going to let you choose one or the other. So you can choose to apply for a For Good project grant or a Forever sustainability grant. That means, and a Forever sustainability grant is also for up to 10,000. They are different applications, and you can choose one of those. The difference between those, obviously, the project grants are going to want you to talk about your project, your program, the timeline of it, how you're going to measure success, the outcomes, all of that. While the Forever Sustainability Grant is going to ask you more about your general operating budget. They're going to ask for some comparison from past years. We're going to ask you about what was your plan kind of going into COVID, what's your plan now? And then they're going to, what's going to be a real key thing to think about when you're applying for that and to talk to us about is, what is your plan now? What do you foresee being things that might not go well? Like if things go bad, how are you going to change or pivot? What's your contingencies for your contingencies, basically? So it's an if this, then we'll do this. And if this happens, then we'll do this. And then if this happens, so that we want to hear some of what your plan is. And what that's going to tell us is, do you have a solid handle on how you're going to continue strongly running your business through all of this? That's going to help you with the Forever Sustainability Grant. The biggest question I could anticipate you all asking about this is, why would I choose one or the other? I think, the fund developer in me says, well, isn't the Forever just an operational general ops grant? I could use that for anything, so why wouldn't I just apply for that? The biggest reason is very pragmatic. It's that I think we're going to get a lot more of those grants, and it's going to be a lot more competitive than you think. So if you do not have a compelling reason to say, hey, we really need help with just sort of general funding, and especially if you have a great program that needs help, the For Good grant is going to be a better option for you and probably slightly less competitive. That would be my thoughts on that, is that I think you really have to think twice. Now, if you receive a For Good grant or a Forever grant in this round, you are not eligible for any more For Good or Forever grants this year. So we will do another round of at least For Good grants this year, later in the fall. But you win this one, you're done for the year. If you win a Forever grant now and we only do For Good grants next, you still are done for the year. So just keep that in mind and choose wisely. Lisa, any questions so far?
No, the only thing is that to let folks know that this information will be available and is available on our website.
Yep, all of this is available on our website. And actually, good point, Lisa. This particular grant is a web-based application. So you would have to go to our website, create a login and password if you haven't already, and that's where you'll find the application, and you actually put all of your answers right into the website. And I'll give you a fun little nugget of extra advice. Always type your answers in a Word document and copy and paste them into our web forms. Because if you get lost, I can't find you. So you'll save yourself a lot of trouble if for some reason you have a computer issue that crashes or something and it doesn't save, if you have them in a Word document saved already.
Susie, if there's a question that if you want a grant in the fall of 2020, can you still apply in the spring of 21, or do I have to wait for the fall of 2021?
You're saying if you have a project that's going to happen in the fall, you can and should apply right now if you want.
No, the question, if I got a grant in fall of 2020.
Oh, in 2020. No, one per year. You can win one per calendar year. So if you won it last year, you're eligible this year if you have not won a grant for more than 3 years in a row. So that's the last stipulation I'll say. If you're one of those organizations that's received a For Good grant for 3 years in a row, then we ask you to take a year off.
Okay. And so in all of those, the 3 years is still in all of these grants that are Berrien Community Foundation grants, the 3 year that you have to take that year still applies. Okay.
Still applies. So if you just won, say your first one last year, then no, you can still apply right now or in the fall. You can still win one this year because you can win one per calendar year for 3 years in a row. And then we ask you to take a year off. If you win for 2 years in a row and you just don't win one that third year, then your count starts over. All right, let's move on to the next grant in the BCF family, the Golden Acorn Classroom Mini Grants. These are really fun grants for teachers. They are for if you are a teacher with a classroom in Berrien County, you can apply for an award of up to $500. They're for helping teachers with projects or ideas that they might not have in their regular budget that would help them do better teaching. And we know our schools need all the support they can get right now. So they're having to be extra creative. And so if you know of a teacher in Berrien County who could use it, then please encourage them to check it out. It's a fairly simple application. We keep it open year round and we just do cutoff dates. So February 15th and June, oh, sorry, my little box is in the way of my dates. June 15th is our cutoffs for this year. And so teachers can apply, they can win one per year, and more than one teacher per school can win. So if you have, say, for example, Niles not too long ago won like 9 of them in one go. So encourage more than one teacher for your school. And then of course, a teacher can win one per year. Any questions about that? All right, let's move on. To further confuse who owns what, the Stephen E. Upton Love Your Community grant is actually a Berrien Community Foundation owned, quote unquote, grant. Mr. Upton, Mr. and Mrs. Upton very graciously said they wanted to support the community long after they might be able to personally, physically. And so they made a gift to the Berrien Community Foundation and instructed us to create a grant that would forever love the community. So this is what that is. And it's an award of $50,000 each year for projects that love the community. The way that you apply for it is you submit a letter of intent by June 1st. And then from that letter, the Berrien community, the committee that reviews that will choose finalists. And those finalists will fill out a full application. And then the winner and all the finalists are required to attend our annual meeting in September where the winner is announced. So I want to make that point is that it's a pretty long process for a grant from June until September, so you wouldn't want to talk about a project that you need to start in, July. Think about it that way. Preferred projects for this tend to address crucial needs. They make a positive impact on the community. They're sustainable over time. It's not a one and done type of thing. And they often include collaborations. So those are some ideas. And to give you an example, the first ever Upton grant a Love Your Community grant that was awarded was made to the Therapeutic Equestrian Center for they do equine therapy, and they were creating a program for equine therapy with seniors and vets. So it was definitely showing love of the community, loving our seniors, and so that was the one that won it first. But a little extra bonus info about what gets funded, what tends not to. They tend to prefer projects that the 50,000 takes a pretty significant bite of the whole overall budget. So if you're looking at a $5 million project, that 50,000 is going to be a smaller bite and maybe not as appealing as a project with a budget closer to the 50,000, so just a little something to keep in mind. Questions? All right. The next one, this is a really fun one for Harbor Country. So for all of you folks, I know I saw Darlene in there somewhere. Darlene, there you are on my screen. You're probably going to be mad at me for this, but this is the William J. Deputy Fund. William J. Deputy was a heck of a guy, it sounds like. I never had the chance to meet him, but when he passed, he left a gift to us saying, I want you to take and create a fund, and I want you to give out a grant that improves the lives of people in Harbor Country. And so the way that he wanted it set up was that it would be for the people who could apply, or the organizations that would apply, are municipalities serving in Harbor Country. So if you want to apply for a William J. Deputy Fund grant, you have to work with a municipality. So either a municipality can apply or a group working with them can apply. And we've seen many partnerships that are great. For example, what you see here are some pictures of some past grants made. There's one where it was the Spring Creek Schoolhouse, that's in Three Oaks. It was to renovate it and make it more of a community center and history building. And then below is a picture from a partnership between the Harbor Country Rotary and New Buffalo, and they put together a handicap accessible outdoor gym, basically, with exercise equipment in a park. So the awards for this are around $7,500 each year, depending on the fund and how it works, how it grows. And the due date for this is May 15th. So if you are working in Harbor Country and think that you could partner with a municipality, or you are a municipality, feel free to reach out to them to talk about this grant. I think by and large, they all know what this grant is. Questions? All right, next. This is a really more unusual, you don't see these kind of grants very often, at least I haven't. I've done some research. It's the Alamar Nonprofit Sustainability Grant. This is one of our newer products here, and it is, again, owned by BCF. We had an anonymous donor who made a gift because this person said that they've been working with nonprofits for many years, and they noticed that the crime they felt was being committed was that all of those folks that work at nonprofits are kind of expected to be paid in satisfaction versus actual benefits or dollars, and some of that kind of stuff always seems to happen. We always kind of lean towards thinking that people who work for nonprofits don't need the money. And don't need that kind of, for-profit support, the support that happens in for-profits. So, and then this person was also concerned with the sustainability of organizations over time and their ability to continue to serve, and wanted to create something that was not project-based in a grant. And the Alamar is the result. So the Alamar is for nonprofits. It awards up to $75,000 which is paid out over 3 years. And it's for organizational stability that improves the lives of employees, while still showing the sustainability of the project. And you apply for this by submitting a letter of intent by April 30th. The letters of intent, any that I mention here, by the way, you can find information on our website where you go to look at our grants that tells you what questions you would really want to answer in that letter. So I would really recommend anybody applying, please read every word on the website before you put your application in. It will give you valuable information that I don't have time to tell you here today. The second thing I will say, and this seems like a no-brainer, but when you submit your letter of intent, make sure you put your contact information on it, because you'd be surprised how every year we've got an application, these letters, we get a letter and they give us a name and they don't tell us the organization, nor do they tell us how to get a hold of them. It's bizarre. So please be careful and make sure that you're positive we know how to get a hold of you. I can't tell you how much time I've spent searching to figure out how to call somebody. That's going to make it to the next round if we can just get a hold of you. To give you a little background about this one, or at least some maybe an idea of what it is, what it isn't, because we tend to get those questions. The Alamar preferred project certainly has that, it certainly has the aspect of improving the lives of employees, but it's also sustainable over time. So I'll tell you a great example of what it's not. What it's not is it's not, hey, we're going to take the $75,000. We're going to pay, we've got overworked employees because we're understaffed and they need some help. We're going to hire somebody and pay them $25,000 a year to help. And then in 3 years, we'll just be done. We won't have any more money. Yes, while that does improve lives of your employees, probably by helping them out for a little while, it's not sustainable over time. So that's something that it wouldn't be. Something that it might be, though, is we realize that we do need to staff up. We simply don't have the capital for it. So we're going to create a development plan that includes using the $75,000 to help us with development. Maybe we'll take a $25,000 each year and we'll try to create a development plan for a match that would help build a fund to help pay for maybe some either extra benefits for our employees, or even to maybe even help pay for more employees. Or we've had grants made to help an organization help provide benefit plan, like a health insurance plan to their employees. Without great people, and you need to keep them, it's hard for an organization to be sustainable. So those are some ideas of what might or might not work for Alamar. Lisa, anything?
Denise, you were waving your hand if you want to take yourself off mute and ask if you have a question.
My question was answered.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I love that. All right, we'll go to the next one. Heart of Cook. Now we're going into what we call the non-owned by Berrien. So this one obviously is the Heart of Cook, which is a foundation, and it is the charitable giving arm of the Cook nuclear plant here in Berrien County. In about, I believe it was 2003, the Cook folks came to us and partnered with us to help create this grant program that they fund. And in order to help, and actually this year is going to be a really stellar year, because this year they will reach over $1 million in giving back to the community through this actual grant. So that's exciting. And I know they're thrilled. And so the Heart of Cook competitive grants are for agencies serving in Berrien County and in Southwest Indiana. So that's different from all the ones we've talked about so far have been about Berrien County only. So now we're into the territory of the Cook plant, basically, of the work they do. So the rule of thumb is, do I qualify? If I'm not in Berrien, do I qualify? The best way to kind of think about it is, do the people you serve get a bill from I&M Power? If they do, you might qualify for a Heart of Cook grant. That's a good rule of thumb. There's some more specifics on our website of specific counties that are covered. if you want to find out if that's a concern for you, but that's your rule of thumb for that. Now, Heart of Cook does 1 round of grants per year, and they offer 2 applications. One is a mini grant for up to $500, and one is a long form grant for $501 to $10,000. The due date is February 10th, so if you're looking to apply for this one, get cracking. It's next week. It's an online application, so you can go right to our website and start your application right after we're done here. Their priorities tend to be furthering education, supporting human services, and preserving the environment. So that's a pretty broad range of priorities, frankly, you know. So I'm probably going to assume that most everybody here represents one of those priority areas. So let's see, what else can I tell you about them? All right, while the largest grant you can receive from the Heart of Cook grants is $10,000, I will point out that they tend to give a smaller amount because they like to give more organizations a gift. So you see more between the $3,000 and $5,000 and maybe $7,000 range than you do $10,000 grants. Just be aware of that. Doesn't mean you can't apply for it. They just might not give you the full amount that you're asking. So if it were me, I would probably put somewhere in my narrative what my biggest priority items might be, and that the price tag for those, to help them if they are going to choose a smaller amount. That might be a smart way to do it, to try and get what you most need. Any questions about Heart of Cook?
Yes, this should be, just a clarification, this should be Northwest Indiana, correct?
Oh,
not Southwest?
You're right, it is. That's
okay.
My bad. Sorry, guys.
We're used to saying Southwest Michigan. So Northwest
Yep.
Indiana. And does Heart of Cook prefer to see others also contributing, or do they prefer to be the largest supporter of the project?
I think Heart of Cook is happy with seeing collaborations or other funding streams either way. I think that they're, like all of our grant programs, they like to see that that you are sustainable somehow, right? So if all your funding stream is one place, they don't love, you know, they feel like you put yourself in jeopardy of losing, you know, funds one day. What if they went away or weren't able to give the way that they do now? So I would say it would, if your program is really, we just need this and this is the whole amount and you want to ask for it, it will get due consideration. But on the other side, I think they're also quite pleased when they see that they have other support in the community for something and they go, oh, well, this is great. People really want this to happen, so let's support it too. So I would say yes and yes. I don't know.
Okay, and can you clarify the definition that you're using for agencies?
For Heart of Cook, when I say agencies, actually, you know what, I'll give a true, what I really am meaning when I say it for any of these organizations or any of these grants. When I say agencies, I mean nonprofit 501c3s, religious organizations doing community work, schools, or municipalities, any of those things doing that community work. So, you know, so that's what I technically mean when I'm saying agencies, but I'm glad that you asked me to be more specific, and I will I'll try to list them each time from here on out to be clear.
Do they still request that Cook employees be involved?
They do ask the question if Cook employees are supportive, you know, are involved in the project. I get this question a lot. It's a good question. And the answer is yes, they do ask that, and they want you to tell them about employees or employees' families who are involved in a project. It's not always a deal breaker. It doesn't mean that you're automatically denied if you don't have that kind of support. I've seen them fund projects that are just great projects that Cook plant employees are not involved with. It's just always nice when they, you know, have some association, supportive association. I will, however, caution you, if you say that someone is a supporter of your program, make sure they know that, because sometimes, you know, they do reach out. When you say someone's working with you, I tend to ask, you know, and they do too. So, you know, just make sure that they know that you're being mentioned and in what capacity you feel that their support is, and, you know, just, you know, be very transparent, because it's, you know, you don't want to look shady because they're just caught off guard.
Can you give an example of human services?
Food pantries. Human services, food pantries, resource centers, services in the, I don't know, ramps. There was ramps for handicapped folks. That was the Disability Network, and Servants at Work of Northwest Indiana, I believe, is another place that both have recently received grants for building ramps for handicap accessibility for people. Oh, well, Lisa, help me out here. I'm blanking now. Anything else that I am?
Sure. If you think of human services, anything where you are serving humans. Okay.
Yeah.
So you are, I mean, it's really basic. It is
It's very broad.
it's a human need, a basic
Yeah.
human need. It could be anything from food to to health, to there's lots of different ways that we
Youth
provide human services to youth, those kinds of things. So it's a human services is a pretty broad category.
It's very broad. If there's a problem in the community and you are addressing it, it's a good chance it's under the human service category. Unless it's a problem with animals, then it would be under probably environmental, but that's still in this particular category, covered under one of their priorities.
Are local units of government that are not municipalities able to apply?
I would say yes. And I want to give the example so I'm clear, because maybe that person could say what local unit of government they're asking about. If it's police, yes, I would say yes. If it's libraries, they're considered units of government, yes. I think I can't think of one that wouldn't be. So if they want to pop up the type of organization specifically, we can say yes or no. And if not, always just reach out to me after this in an email and ask me.
Okay.
If you want to get more specific privately. Anything else, Lisa?
Hold on, I'm trying to keep up. Previously, I had thought that Van Buren County, South Haven was included in the Heart of Cook area. Is that accurate?
I don't think that is accurate. You know what, we can offline, whoever you are that asked that question, why don't you shoot me an email and I will dig in a little deeper, but I'm fairly certain that South Haven is not included in that.
All right, go ahead and move forward. There's some of these that I can answer on my own, and I'll do that.
Oh, all right, good times. Okay, speaking of preserving the environment, the Heart of Cook folks really love preserving the environment so much that they decided to start a new grant. This is new this year, we're announcing it, for Earth Day projects. So Heart of Cook Earth Day grants are separate from the Heart of Cook competitive grants. So if you win a Heart of Cook competitive grant, you're still able to win a Heart of Cook Earth Day grant in the same year. And they're looking for, it's a $5,000 grant, looking for projects that are, Earth Day type projects that would be maybe have some STEM involvement, are sustainable over time, preserving the environment. And one of the things that are close to them is protecting the water. Because the Cook Plan is very keenly aware of the need for them to protect our water source because they use it in the work they do. They especially, they like that. So this is, again, one of those where it's the same as before with Northwest Indiana and Berrien County, but I will say with both of these that preference does tend to be given for Berrien County projects. Questions about this? All right, the one thing I do know about this is they will be awarding you the check on Earth Day, which I believe is April 22nd this year. Your project should be for after that, not the day of Earth Day necessarily. Because we all grant projects, if you are just a little general grant, FYI, for those that don't know, all of our grant programs do not pay for things that happened in the past. It has to be for things that are going to happen after the check is received. So always be sure you're clear on when the grant will be awarded so that you can make sure your timeline aligns with the grant program. Now, we know that some projects are flexible and can start when money is received, and that's okay to say, this is when we'll start, when you're talking about your timeline. Okay, anything else, Lisa? Birthday? All right. The Frederick S. Upton Foundation. This is another great example of service we provide to the Frederick S. Upton Foundation, and that's to help them with their grant administration. Now, the Frederick S. Upton Foundation grants are lovely in that they do let you apply, and they don't put a limit on how much you can apply for. But I will say to you, please be realistic in your request. Organizations that receive large amounts in the 100,000s range like that or more are usually organizations that have been funded by them for a very long time. They know them very well. They've done great work with them already. And those tend to be, they're a little more rare than, your regular. So make sure that you, it's sort of like, if you want to go to prom with this lovely person, you want to meet them first, get to know them, let them get to know you. It's a slow process and you do it very well, right? You don't just walk up to a stranger and ask them to prom. Well, most people don't. So it's the same thing with asking the amounts you want to ask for with the Upton Foundation is you want to give them a chance to see the great work you do and build your relationship over time. One of the things I want to just make sure I'm checking my notes to make sure I'm clear. The Upton Foundation grants are available to nonprofit organizations, churches, or religious organizations doing community work, schools, government units, all of those that they're serving in Berrien County. And the goals of the Upton Foundation are to encourage organizations and people to work together to improve both the economics and the culture of Berrien County. So you can see that they said economics and culture, which I recognize and we all kind of recognize as it's not just about people having a job or those nuts and bolts basic needs, it's also about culture and art and all those other things. So, they're kind of a broad range of things that they like to see projects for. What I will tell you about these projects is that they like to see that they're not the only funder. So, they like to see that you have, you're asking for a portion of the project from them, but you also have support in other places. They like to see that because, again, they like to show them that you have support. If they ever went away, you're still strong because you are seeking diversified funding streams. They like collaborations and they like those smart, coordinations of different organizations when they can do things like that. I think they like to see that and think it's great. They're not afraid of new organizations and new projects. They give a chance to a lot of them. And the Upton Foundation tends to be one of the grant programs we have that will do a challenge sometimes. So when I say a challenge, I mean, they'll say, okay, if you're asking for 10,000, we're gonna offer you, if you raise 5, we'll give you 5. We'll help you meet your goal. Sometimes they'll do things like that, or we'll give you 5 and then we'll task you with raising 5 and we'll give you some more or something. They do different combinations of that. And I don't necessarily have a rhyme or reason to why they do that always, but mostly I think it's because they want to encourage you to make a development plan that involves more of the community than just the Frederick S. Upton Foundation. So, and it's really for your best interest. So application. So let's talk about this application. This one's different from the rest that we've talked about so far in that you have to request an application from myself or Lisa to apply. And it's a Word document that we would email to you. And then you are required to send us paper copies and send an email. All that's on the website as to where and how many and all that, but it's different. It's not a web form. You have to request, and I strongly, strongly say, ask for a new application every time you want to apply to the Upton Foundation grants, because we change it occasionally. And we have people sometimes who will pull out some application that was 9 years ago, and it's wildly different from the application that you're going to see that you need to do today. That would be some of my best advice for you. And the deadlines for the Upton Foundation are, they do 3 deadlines each year. They do March 15th, June 15th, and October 15th. It's always those 3 dates, no matter what day they fall on, whether it's a holiday or a Sunday or whatever, it's always those dates. And if you win, once you have won an Upton Foundation grant in a calendar year, you are done for the year. So if you win in March, then you're done for the year and you cannot apply in June or October. If you don't win one in March, and you can then apply in June, and if you win it, you're done, or if you don't win it, you can apply in October. And so you have 3 opportunities to receive a grant before you finish, for the year. You don't have to apply in March or June if you want to apply in October, though. We don't require you to go through a year-long process to get to the last application. So, you have options, and they do it, I think, to be kind and say, we know that different development folks have different development schedules. So I think it's a really kind process that they put you through. So that's the grants from the Frederick S. Upton Foundation.
Susie, can I go back real quick here? There was a question with Heart of Cook that came in last. The Heart of Cook grants, there's the Heart of Cook small grants, large grants, and the Earth Day. Can I apply for all 3 of those, or can I just apply for one? How does that work?
You can apply for Heart of Cook competitive grants. You can apply for either a mini grant or a long form grant, one or the other. And then separately, having nothing to do with the competitive grants, you can also apply to the Earth Day grants. So the example would be, I can apply for one long form grant from the competitive grants and an Earth Day grant and be theoretically awarded both. So does that make sense? Does that help? Yep. All right.
And one other question: how long should we expect for once you put your application in? How long does it take to get a decision?
Oh, Heart of Cook one, February 10th is the deadline, and you generally will hear whether you've won by early June, late May. It tends to depend on outages. You might learn earlier than that, but in normal times, you would receive your check in June when we have a reception at the Cook plant and we hand you your check.
In general, for grant applications, is it a month, 2 months, 3 months? What does that look like?
In general, you're looking at 1 to 2, up to 2 months generally is what we've been averaging for good. Upton sometimes can be a little longer. The Frederick S. Upton Foundation sometimes is 3 months. And we will try to make sure we provide that information on a regular basis, update the website when we know those things so that people have a better idea. If you're ever not sure, feel free to reach out and we'll let you know. But yeah, it's a good rule of thumb to assume at least 2 months from the deadline is when you might know on average. And sometimes it's a little longer, sometimes it's a little shorter. Now, with the Earth Day project, it's going to be a lot shorter because we're turning it around in about a month.
With Heart of Cook, can the event take place before the actual money is awarded?
No. We can't, like I said, we cannot pay, we cannot give you a grant for something that's happened that you've already spent the money for. So it must be, so if you're looking at something, say, for example, you have a project for March 20th, then you would look at applying now for next year. And that would be okay. Of course, if you have a project like that, I would encourage you to consider looking at some of our other grants as well, because there might be a program that would help you, like say at the end of this year for next year, different things too. So, because as I said, pretty much all of these, they are mutually exclusive. That means I can win one of every grant we've talked about today in one calendar year, sort of like the, a trifecta, if you will. And so know that it's not, probably not likely that you're going to win every single one of our grants, but technically you are allowed. Anything else?
Nope, you're good. Keep going.
All right. Then the Big Idea grant from the Frederick S. Upton Foundation. So the Frederick S. Upton Foundation at one point, I think the history, if I understand it correctly, was at one point it was sort of a, they had folks who would do research and help figure out what topic would we like to ask for a request, request a proposal for. And they'd pick a topic. Maybe it's, children's literacy. This year we'd like to do something. And then at some point, I think it might have been Lisa Cripps Downey who got a big idea to say, what if we asked and suggested to them, and they agreed wholeheartedly, what if we asked the community what they thought the big idea would be, what the big issue that needs to be addressed. And we went back to all of you because you guys are clearly in the trenches and you're clearly the experts of what's going right and what's going wrong and what's needed in our community. And they said, let's let folks tell us what their big idea would be if we could give them a bigger amount of money to address it. And that's where the Big Idea grant, that sort of philosophy behind it is. So the awards for this, we do one $50,000 and one $25,000 grant each year. So, or up to 50 and up to 25. And it is also a letter of intent, kind of project and it's due April 30th. So again, if you check out our website, it'll tell you specifics of what should be in that letter. And I again urge you to write your name and phone number on there somewhere. Bonus points for your email address. And preferred projects are innovative programming and new ideas. So, if you've got something that doesn't exist yet, that you see a need in the community for, that's an idea for you. That might be a good idea. And also, I think, they would also consider scale. Say you've been piloting something that's worked very well. They might consider scaling a project as a big idea. So there's lots of different ways that you could interpret what your big idea is. The application process goes like this. You will submit your letter of intent. From those letters, they choose finalists and they request that you fill out a fuller application. And from those, maybe all, maybe some are invited then to do a presentation for the board. And I believe that usually happens over 4th of July weekend. You do a physical presentation. And then I believe you right away, if you've received one or not. Lisa.
So a couple of questions. What would the estimated announcement project start date be? So it's after that 4th of July timeframe. The question, what can funding be used for in the Big Idea grant?
Well, it's project based. So I would say it can be used for, getting a project started. I think that there probably could be some component of the operations of that project, but really it's the same as any other project grant, is that you want to see a project or a program getting started. So it could, I believe, and Lisa, you can jump in here because you've worked on these as much as anyone. It could help with some salary or overhead stuff if it's integral to getting that project up and running.
Absolutely.
So it does have a little more flexibility in that way. I don't know that I could make you a list of, nope, we won't fund that, but we will fund that, but we won't with that, because really it does have to be somewhat flexible in order to launch a big idea.
Okay, there's a question, does the project have to be sustainable for the Big Idea grant? And maybe I can grab this one. They are looking for, have you looked beyond just trying this once? How are you going to continue the project once this funding has been expended?
Yeah, there's in almost all of our grant applications, there's a question, about, how will you fund this in the future, and and to talk about what the future for the project or program is. And in some instances, a project is a one and done item. But in other instances, it's clearly something that should be sustainable over time. We understand that if we're helping a homeless shelter, you're never going to be able to be sustainable by charging men for beds. That's not that's not something people could expect. So there are some things that are self-fundable and some things that are not. And everything is looked through a lens of trying to having common sense of it. but you have to kind of talk about what your development plan is, even if it's more fundraising, you know, even if it's more grant writing, but we want to know that you have a plan, and the plan isn't just, well, we're going to ask you again. And that's okay to be part of the plan, but it can't be all of the plan. So any other questions about Big Idea? Again, if you receive a Frederick S. Upton Foundation grant, you can win a Frederick S. Upton Big Idea grant in the same year. Also, if you win the For Good grant, you can win an Upton grant. If you win the Stephen Upton Love Your Community grant, you can still win a Frederick S. Upton Foundation grant in the same year. So I just want to stress that, because I feel like there's definitely some confusion about eligibility for things, and sometimes people stop themselves from applying because they don't think they're eligible. Anything else? Any other questions, Lisa?
No, you're good to go.
All right, let me, that's an overview of all but one of our grant programs. We do have one more product that we have been doing, and I'm sorry I didn't even think to put it in here today, but I'll tell you, it's the Southwest Michigan Cares Emergency Grants. This was a fund that was developed in partnership with United Way of Southwest Michigan, and we've also been working with the Community Foundation of South Haven to put emergency grants out there to help our nonprofits, help our community get through COVID. So it still exists. If you are interested in learning more about it, you can find it at southwestmichigancares.org. And it will have a place to click, and actually it'll just redirect you back to our website, but I think that's the fastest way to find out more. And you can apply. It's a by design, a very simple application. It's the simplest application we have. We turn it around weekly or bi-weekly, which is the fastest application turnaround we do. So we've been busy here at Berrien Community Foundation. And it's for projects due to emergency projects because of COVID. So, if you are a great example is if you are a food pantry and you've seen an uptick in need for products and services or hygiene products or whatever, because COVID, has created more need, then you can apply to us for extra dollars to help you cover that need. And we've been basically doing about 2 months at a time. You ask for dollars to cover about 2 months of that need at a time. And then you can come back and apply again if there is still need in 2 months. And then the other thing that has been funded by that fund, and this is where you nonprofits all can, all you agencies can listen up and say, oh, okay, is if you needed some help reopening to the public. So say you do a service that really needs to meet with folks face-to-face. Maybe it's because you work with seniors and they just don't use the electronics and the phone as well as a face-to-face meeting. And you needed to do some things to help you be able to do that safely. Say you needed some plexiglass in your office, or you need cleaning products, or those kind of things. We were allowing a nonprofit or an agency to apply for up to $1,500 one time to help them with acquiring things they might need to help them serve the community, with heightened safety measures because of COVID. So when you want to apply to that, always ask yourself, how is this related to an emergency or to a problem caused by COVID and the consequent shutdown in our community? And if you can relate that, then that's possibly something you can apply to the Southwest Michigan Cares Grant for. Any questions about that, Lisa? Sorry, I threw that.
Yes, what's the website for the CARES grant?
Southwest, let me just look it up real quick to make sure I'm telling you the right.
I'll get that. Well, I'll get that while you're answering the question. If
Okay.
they received an Upton operating grant this year, I'm assuming, Julia, I'm assuming you meant in 2020. Does that preclude us from any other Upton grants? Or if you Julia, you want to ask that? I can't really understand what I'm trying to follow this one. If we received an Upton operating grant this year, does that preclude us from any other Upton grants?
Yes, we received the operating support grant that was offered one time.
The sustainability, the Upton
Thank you.
sustainability.
Yeah,
That's the one. Thank
and-
you.
but that was a 2020 grant. So that was a 2020 grant payment. And so when it hits January 1, 2021, we start over and you can apply again.
Thank
So
you.
the answer is yes, you can apply for any of the Upton products again, in 2021.
And the website is southwestmichigancares.org. You can go there, or it's also available on the Berrien Community Foundation site under our COVID-19 response with Southwest Michigan Cares, but southwestmichigancares.org.
And that one, so I'm sorry I didn't put a slide on that one. I apologize. But that one's also a good option, if you are addressing issues in the community because of COVID. And there's still dollars available in that fund. We'll be making grants from that fund until we no longer have dollars or an emergency. I'm not sure what the plan is to end. Some of the other things that fund's been used for is just to help you all sleep at night is rent, mortgage, and utility help for Berrien County. So, and that's done a great deal to help make sure that people have not gotten evicted, nor we've also been able to help some folks avoid foreclosure on their mortgage. So that's been really, really helpful. And for the record, that fund was funded by a tremendous amount of individuals and organizations. And it really astounded me how quickly after the shutdown, everyone reached out and said, here, we have dollars, put together a fund, do this, and how much everybody just wanted to. And throughout all of COVID, people have been reaching out to us at the foundation and saying, I have a little extra money, who needs it? And have been, making gifts to nonprofits in different places just to make sure that everybody has what they need. So the community does have your back. That's really, I guess, my point, as best they can. So here's some grant writing tips. These are just my basic ideas. I gave you a little silly list here, but obviously follow directions. If it says don't staple it, please don't staple it. If it says put paper clips, use paper clips. Just do what it says. Answer every question. Even if you don't think that the question applies to you, and it's, just say, even if the answer is, I don't need to answer this and here's why. Create quality documents. That means, be careful. Many of our applications are online and they're digital in some way or another. Make sure you are familiar with how to turn your document into a PDF and be able to upload a PDF. And because that is generally the way that any uploads we accept are accepted, and the only way we accept them. If you don't know what a PDF is or how to do it, find the nearest teenager to you and ask them, because they all know. And for cheap pay, like pizza or candy, they will teach you. But please embrace that, because it just is the way it is for applying for grants. But don't get too fancy with your quality documents. If you have to submit a paper document, you don't need to bind it. You don't need to put it in fancy folders. You don't need to put it on super heavy paper, cardstocky paper. When you do all those things, we just have to undo all those things and make it into a basic, nice copy paper version that's one-sided, that will fit in a scanner and print and scan and all that. So you make our life harder by trying to be more beautiful with your product. And it doesn't matter, because in the end, it's going to look just like a decent copy paper version. Sign on the line. Make sure you have all your signatures you need. We have made every effort we can to eliminate signatures required, so it's not duplicated work throughout a program. We had some places where we identified needing more than one signature, and it just, it was too much, and we did work to eliminate that, but you still have to sign the ones we need. And so make sure that you're keeping an eye on what you need to sign and what you need signatures for, because invariably you finish writing your grant, you need that signature from a board member, and that board member tends to spend all their time in Vancouver except for one day a month. And then you can't get your signature, and and watch your deadlines. The biggest thing I see folks doing is they don't realize that, say, an Upton grant, which is on the 15th, is due, and that's a Sunday. And now they're like, well, if it's on a Sunday, then I can bring it in Monday, right? No, you can't. It's the day before. Always think of it as, watch your deadlines, be aware of when they are, and try to get your information in early versus late. If it's a 15th on a Sunday, you still have to get it to us before then. So, and I guarantee you, we won't be at the office. You can drop it through our mail slot now, which is nice. We have that in the door of our office, but we're not going to be sitting in the office waiting for your call on Sundays to take a deadline of that day. Ask for help early. Whoops. Ask for help early. Now, this is really just for me. If you ask me for help 4 weeks before a deadline, I am going to be really much more helpful than I am going to be 5 minutes before the deadline on the day it's due. You're going to get a lot more help from me early. So read the whole application before you write a word and see what you don't understand, investigate that, and then come back to us and ask your questions and get your help. Find a proofreader. Find somebody who knows how to look at your capitals and your grammar and your punctuation. That's important. But also find somebody who maybe doesn't know that much about what you're doing and what you're trying to do, and have them read your grant. And if they understand what you're requesting and why you think it'll work and all that, then that's a good indicator that you've written a decent grant. It's a good way to check to make sure that, because we live in this information, and sometimes we throw out acronyms and all that other stuff, and we get real thinky about it. And then normal people, and that's who's reviewing your grants, is normal people, don't get what you're saying. And that's not what you want. Read all about it on the webpage. So before you call and ask a question, make sure you go, unless you're in this particular meeting, then ask anything you want. But when you're just in the world, go to the website and read through everything that we've put there, because we try to put a lot of information down before you call and ask for me to read the website to you, which is what I'll do. Basically. If I do get a question though that I don't address on the website, we do tend to try to update that and share it so that it's there for everybody else. But do that research and then keep on the lookout, which means to find out about opportunities, keep an eye out. You can do it in a couple of ways. You can check out our Facebook. You can like our Facebook page. We put announcements and warnings. You can sign up for the BCF newsletter on our website, and we put deadlines there. You can check out our our webpage. We keep it there. We do press releases, so it's in the paper or the radio sometimes. And then if you want to be on my not-for-profit personal email list, shoot me an email and say, here's my email address. Please put me on your not-for-profit email list. That's the one I tend to send out, hey, this is coming up soon. And so send that and we'll put you on that list as well. And that way you won't miss out on opportunities that happen. And again, we're going back to the one I showed you before. Where do I find more information? So for more information about the grants and to actually apply, you go to berriencommunity.org/grants. If you want this sheet that's over here and a few other documents that we put up, or to view the recording of this session, you go to berriencommunity.org/grants-info, and you'll be able to find some more information there. So that is what I have here, folks. So any questions? Wow. All right.
There is one question. I'm not sure that this is the format that we want to ask this. It is, can someone speak to equity in terms of disbursements to vulnerable communities? I'm not sure that this is the purpose of this meeting, but I'll throw that out there to you, Susie.
Speak of equity of disbursements to vulnerable communities. I'm assuming that by communities you're meaning vulnerable populations, because there's vulnerable people in every community in Berrien County that we serve. We, like every other, I think, nonprofit in the world or in the United States, took a long, hard look at ourselves this past year. And I mean, not that we weren't doing it before, but we did it even more this year. And we recommitted ourselves to making sure that we are accessible to all folks who need help. And from the grant program perspective, you know, me personally and the work I do in the department I serve, I really recommitted to making sure we had representation in a lot of ways, that we're trying to have representation on our committees that review, so that we have folks from vulnerable populations, you know, represented in those meetings. That the folks who are trying to apply, if they are in an organization that maybe isn't as technologically savvy, or, you know, maybe they're very small and they're one person working a church and, you know, a church food pantry in a very at-risk community, that we made sure we were helpful. Like for example, the CARES grant, I have a paper copy that I will let you fill out if you can't do if it seems that the electronic version is too challenging to do. Because it was about getting the dollars out to the people who need it more than it was about getting my formula filled out exactly the way I wanted it. And the grant programs, we made sure that we have an equity statement on our grant agreements, our contracts, saying that, you know, you will not be discriminatory in the use of your funds. We made sure that that language was there to be clear to the world, that we wanted to make sure. And then if you literally want me to pull statistics of how many dollars do we give to certain populations, off the top of my head, I just can't do it, but I can do it. But we can provide more data on how we're serving. If you know, want more, whoever asked that question, we'd be happy to have a deeper dive discussion about who's getting funded and for what. We're very transparent. I will tell you who won and who received dollars and what they were for any grant that we make. Because I live, and we all at Berrien Community Foundation live by the rule of don't do anything that you wouldn't like to see on the front page of the newspaper. So I hope that answers the question from at least the grants perspective. If you have further questions about that, certainly reach out to Lisa or myself, and we'll attempt to have a deeper discussion about it. Anything else? Lisa, how about that? Anything else?
I think that's it. I think we've gone over our time, so I want to be respectful of that.
Yes, so I will stay on. If you want to go away because you're done and you've learned what you needed to learn, I'll stay on. And if you want to stay and you have a further question, feel free to stick around. I'll sit here for a minute or two and we can talk. Again, thank you all so much for giving me so much of your time today. And I look forward to seeing applications from all of you this year. And thank you all for the work you do in our community. You are doing the good work and it's very hard. And we see you and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you for being a model in my program.
Yeah, Hillary and I will remember.
I was like, oh, that's a good photo. That's an action shot.
I'm hanging out because Lisa said she wanted to speak to me, but I think she jumped off.
You have hair again, Mike Nadolski.
Yeah, I do. It's coming
Holy
back.
cow.
It's like five or six haircuts already. Time flies.
Yeah,
This pandemic, it just flying right by.
Yeah, I cut mine off real short at one point and it's already getting long again. So I didn't quite shave it off, of course, but hi, neighbor to neighbor. Anybody have questions or are we just sort of hanging out? All right, Renee.
Yeah. So I have one. I didn't want to bring it up whole group just because I didn't want to take a bunny trail, but one of the issues that I am kind of having is we serve kids in foster care.
Sure.
Many of the children, they're ages 6 to 18. Many of them have been through a lot of trauma, and wearing masks is an issue. We have shut down when the numbers have been really high, but a lot of our kids don't wear masks. And some of the organizations that I've sought funding from that would like to send volunteers there, I'm very transparent about that, that our kids, we're designing and building. We do a lot. We try to keep, we're sanitizing regularly. We're doing temperature checks, things like that. We're taking precautions But I just wanted to, I guess, ask you about that as far as grants go. I'm not mandating masks on the children who have come. You know, like I said, we closed down for part of the time, and we've taken other things. Our Christmas party was 2 hours instead of 4. They worked in a small group and things like that. So I just wanted to know, like, any of the funding.
Well, I think that it's highly important to make sure that you are encouraging your kids to be as safe as possible. I would say that if you are following the laws that are currently in place, I don't really have anything to say about how you handle your program. I personally think, yeah, you got to be careful and you got to really push those kids because they don't always like to do what's best for them. But I do also understand there's people who are trauma or sick or something that, as long as you're following the rules and you guys feel that you are safely following the rules, that doesn't have anything to do with a grant that you might receive from us.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that didn't preclude us from, I mean, we're taking as many precautions as we
Sure.
can, but also taking into consideration the demographics of the kids that we're serving.
Get those kids that won't wear a mask or can't wear a mask, get them a shield.
Yeah, well, some of
You
them.
know what? Reach out to United Way. They were given a bunch of shields that fit on baseball caps.
Who was that with?
United Way. Call Amanda Drew at United Way.
Oh, Amanda.
That's a great idea. I mean,
See if maybe that, because maybe wearing a ball cap with a shield over it, at least it helps a little.
Right.
I'm sorry. And neighbor to neighbor, you had something?
So I was listening to your presentation, and you mentioned that the CARES grant covers mortgage, rent, and utilities. That's the uptick that we are getting requests for, more than food, because everyone is giving food, and there's so many pantries that give food every week and twice a week. And so many people are asking us, I'm out of a job, I'm living in a hotel, or I'm about to get evicted, or my utilities have gone up and I can't keep my home warm for my kids or whatever, but we didn't get funding for that.
Here's what we did. I'll tell you what we did and what's coming in the pipeline that I know about. What we did was we actually reached out to a handful of organizations throughout Berrien County who already do that kind of work, and said, if we give you dollars, can you do more of this? And Neighbor by Neighbor in Harbor Country was one of them. Salvation Army in Niles is one of them. And Southwest Michigan Community Action Agency is another. So if you have folks who need that,
we could refer
them to either the Salvation Army or whatever's closest to them, most accessible for them. And if they are turned away, then you maybe advocate and give us a call and let us know, and we'll ask questions, but I don't think they will be. That's the first thing. That's how we distribute.
I think the problem lies in the fact that sometimes people wait until the last bill that we got, it was like $1,300 something. Yeah. And I kept thinking, like, where were you at $300? Why, right. Where were you?
You know what? They are turning it around fast. Those folks who are doing these grants we gave them a lot easier, or not easier, but we gave them a little bit more looser ability, because some of them had federal funding that is a lot more strings. Ours had a lot,
But then they could only, when they went to one agency, that agency only helped them with a percentage. And so they came to us with the rest. And we are getting quite a bit of those that are coming with the balance. And
yeah, and all right, so here's the second thing I know. I know that a very significantly large amount of grants are coming through, or a grant is coming through from the federal government, I believe, like to the tune of $7 million. For Berrien County, in order to help with rent and mortgage, or I don't know if it's mortgage, but rent and some other things. So I believe that will be administered through the emergency shelter services. I don't know that they're at the announcing it happening yet point. What they're doing is they're planning and staffing up and getting ready, because that's a lot of money. So folks, check with Salvation Army or Neighbor by Neighbor, and know that help is on the way. There's more coming, and as soon as they can, they'll be putting out information about those as well. And I will try to remember to put you guys on a list if I send out anything saying, hey, this is possible, here's a flyer or something.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Of course. Nice talking to you. Amy.
Sure. So in doing grant applications right now, it seems so, nothing seems to have changed since, 2020 seems to have the problems, and 2021 just has those problems that have been exacerbated now. So is that kind of is that an acceptable request in a grant? Like, hey, we had this trouble last year, we're still having it because because the situation is still ongoing.
Well, that's the reason that the Forever Grant, if you're thinking about like operational sustainability, yeah, I mean, the reason we said we still need it is because it's still needed. I mean, and because things haven't changed for some organizations. Well, some organizations it has. And a good example is when we shut everybody down and sent everybody home, the funding stream for what was Child and Family Services, now the Avenue, most of their funding comes from their adult daycare programs, and that to the tune of like $70,000 a month. And they were shut down. And that $70,000 a month doesn't just pay for that program, it pays for all the programs, including the West Michigan Guardianship and all this other stuff. And but that has changed now. For them, they were able to open up with more limited service, but it's starting to balance, but I'm not even sure that they're still balanced yet. So we're expecting that there's some of you guys who just don't have funding streams anymore. You can't have events that charge. You can't have your big fundraiser. Your businesses that support you are hurting. It's real. And so, no, I would say if it's the same, it's the same. I'd say with this one, make sure that you are saying, and here's the plan. Here's the contingency. Here's what I think could happen. And if this happens, then this is what we'll do. But if this happens, it's showing that we got a good plan. We're going to make it, but we just need, just keep us going, but we're going to keep pivoting as we go. I think that's going to be the big thing.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for that answer. And thank you for today. It was really super helpful.
I hope it was. I know that not everything's changed, but we have had a significant amount of groups who now can just do programs again. So thankfully we don't have to completely overhaul the whole thing.
Right, exactly.
What, though?
Thank you very much. Yep. Thank you.